it's not anything that would make one with a difference, right? In a healthy relationship. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, again, I just wanted to throw that in there so that the listeners understand that we are talking about things that you are not comfortable with. We're talking about things that become if you do not do them, there's going to be some type of negative consequence, literal harm to you.
Right.
And that can be being belittled. The first thing, I will never stop saying this. The very first thing that a man needs to pay attention to is things like, cursing, belittling. See, that's where that starts. That's going to start before physical space, slamming doors, aggressive behaviors. So you have to, I hate to say it like this, but this is the easiest way for me to explain it. If it's unacceptable for your child to do it, to you, it's acceptable for your mate to do it in that sense. So you have to think about those things. When you have people that start to belittle things about you, let's say that there's a health condition or there's something, whatever that thing is that hurts you. Maybe you told them about something that happened in your past. So now they're constantly bringing that up. These are all things that are emotionally intimidating, and it literally breaks you down without ever having to have a hand placed on you. That's what's going to happen for sure.
Let's pause there. Let's pause right there, because that's a huge point that we need to make for gentlemen, because guys usually look at fighting an enemy as your enemy is standing right in front of you. You're standing on equal footing and you're ready to, go toe to toe. That's how most guys envision a fight, for example. What isn't clear is when you don't have that. You have, sort of the gnat situation where it's pestering, it's attacking, or the mosquito is probably a better, you don't see initially when that mosquito is biting you, but then you see the whelps afterwards. There are those, ever increasing, attacks that break you down, public destruction of your person, your character, or character assassination in front of your kids. That's another, one that you mentioned where the notion of your credibility or your past is brought up. Those things are not signs of a healthy relationship. Those are signs of someone who is looking to control you by virtue of, gaining an emotional advantage, and that there are repercussions. On one of our shows, we did talk a lot about, this notion of women who withhold sex in marriage from their husbands as another method of control, which is, if you do what I say, you'll have a little bit. If you don't do what I say, you'll never see it again. That kind of a thing. Is that an escalation? Is that something, how do these things fit when you see these signs? I guess the question is there sort of a natural progression of this in relationships so that guys can say, oh, you know what? Here's where I am on this ruler or on this journey. And maybe I need to work harder if I want to preserve this relationship. I need to work harder to get some counseling. I need to work harder to get, whatever in place to deal with this relationship. Or is it not that cut and dry? Because, you used some examples, closure of physical space, demeaning conversation, things like that.
Yeah. And just to speak to just because you use it as an example, here's what I would say about withholding sex in a relationship. I think oftentimes, more likely than not, it is a control issue. However, what I would say is there a reason that is chosen? Because sometimes, there could have been some infidelity. So instead of, and I say that because women oftentimes, let's say that they've had a relationship where their partner stepped outside of the relationship. And so there were certain things that the man did leading up to.
I'm saying, what if there wasn't? I'm just saying with all, if a man and a woman have been completely monogamous and they're going through, but you see, I guess the big thing here is I want to point out the narcissist type personality, because that's the type that usually becomes more problematic in a relationship, because those are the kinds of folks, this is my humble opinion, but those are the kinds of folks that are much more difficult to ferret out. And I guess what I'm trying to do is to show guys first of all, maybe if you know what a chameleon looks like, you're more likely to find one, and then you can move away from it. Or if you know what a scorpion is, you know what it'll do, you can kind of avoid those things. My hope when it comes to this show is not to attack a gender, but more to attack a problem. And typically, when you have a situation where men have a distinct advantage in the legal system, it's very, very difficult for them to come to court, because oftentimes women are believed, but many times they will tell an untruth. And that can set into motion a set of circumstances where the family dissolves, but then the rights of the man, if you're a person who is trying to remain in the life of your children, are immediately swept away because of whatever accusations a narcissistic woman will proffer to a court. So what I guess I'm saying is it possible to sort of talk about this escalation and start to give guys these signs? Because I really think that a lot of times guys will go in and they will look at a physically beautiful woman, because a lot of times guys are very visual, and they'll say, oh, she's so beautiful, but man, she's really kind of crazy on this one, but she's so beautiful. And then they'll look past it, because they'll say, well, it'll get better. But then those attributes of character begin to show, and that can become something where you can actually end up dead. And that's the thing that I want. I want some people who are listening to the sound of my voice to not just believe that simply because she is smaller or prettier, or, maybe every once in a while when you have time with her physically, that's enough to put aside, verbal assault, physical assault, closure of space, attacking of your character, attacking of your status as a father in the lives of your children. That's not okay. And helping men set healthy boundaries is what I'm all about. And I really hope that we can kind of elucidate that these are encroachments on the boundaries. These are not just this happens in a marriage, I got to deal with it. Because most men haven't been married before they get married. You're going through it for the first time. You have nothing really. A lot of people come from divorced homes, so there's no way for them to know if what's happening is good or if this just doesn't feel right. I guess I'm really trying to help sort of say, okay, if with positive case scenario, everybody's faithful, everybody's started with the idea that this was going to be a good situation. If all things being equal, this is what would happen, and that you need to keep your eyes open for. I guess that's really the main crux of what I'm hoping to accomplish here. So we've talked about the closure of space, verbal abuse, verbal attacks, bringing up of the past, never forget. That's sort of by definition, unforgiveness. The feeling of wanting to hoard your time, those kinds of things, invasion of space. Those are things that you've mentioned thus far. Are there other things that you feel would be useful for men to know?
Oh, absolutely. I think that when you bring up the part about withholding sex for men, and listeners, I'm not making this up. for men, that is part and parcel sometimes express love and how they receive love and what they identify love with, because again, like you mentioned, men are more visual, they're more physical, so that is an expression of love for them, and women know that. And so it goes deeper than, oh, I know that you like sex, so I'm going to withhold it from me. What in essence that is really saying is that I, as your life partner, am unwilling to fulfill your need because you refuse to allow me to control you.
Right.
Now, I will say this to say, more than likely, if a man is in that situation, if he married a woman that he had a previous sexual relationship with, meaning they were having sex before they got married, she probably did that then. And he gave in because he wanted it. That became a pattern.
Right. And so it's used as a tool repeatedly throughout the relationship.
Because the other thing that you have to look for, here's the other thing. The other thing that you have to look for is overly engaging to get what you want. If as a man, you set yourself up with a woman and allow her to come to a place where she knows all she has to do is have sex with you to get whatever it is that she really, really wants you to do, sometimes she'll do it just for that purpose. And men, they don't see that that's control too, because they want sex, and so they get it. So these are all little things, because in both scenarios, sex is being used as a tool to get what you want. It's just that in the second scenario, the man is getting the sex that he wants. And so he doesn't really think about it
as a control tool.
Absolutely.
As a manipulation tool. Right. Right. Let's move through that. So a lot of guys send in questions about, okay, it's not working. So are there steps to making a definitive choice, pro or con, a relationship that would be definite, not just red flags, but exit stage left? You got to get out of there. Are there things that are sort of no-brainers? It's like, okay, this is the point of no return. You really need to do what's in the best interest of your children, what's in the best interest of yourself. Because a lot of guys will stay way in a relationship that's way past toxic. They'll remain in it because of whatever that you talked about, the sex. They'll remain in it because of the children. They'll remain in it because of duty. They'll remain in it because of reputation. They'll remain in it for whatever reason. How are there certain things that are like, you need to go? You need to get out of that situation. What are those, say, maybe name them on, 1 to 5. What are the 5 or whatever number most, important triggers that say, hey, you know what? This could become really dangerous. You got to get out of there.
If you see any manifestation of negative behaviors, and again, we're talking about these type of emotional behaviors, physical behaviors that we've talked about before, that are starting to manifest in your children, you probably should have been gone. But that's something that I know that people don't pay that much attention to, because they say, oh, kids are just growing up. But kids emulate what they see. You are now treating you, they're doing the same thing to you that the spouse is doing. That's a problem, because now they have adapted to the negative behavior as normal interaction with dad. Well, we just tell dad to shut up because that's what mom does, and dad shuts up. So I want dad to shut up, so I'm going to tell dad to shut up. And in some households, shut up dad may be fine. I know it never was in my household.
No, that's not fine. Yeah, we're going to redraw the lines. I think it's important. What we're trying to do, is really redraw these lines, because what's happened is we've gotten socialized to believe certain things that simply aren't true. We've gotten socialized to behave in ways that simply aren't possible or normal or even effective. And I think that we really need to pull that Band-Aid off real quickly and say, hey, this is what the wound is. This is what we need to do. And this is how we need to get guys back on the right track. And the reason why I say that is because I think that healthier men will treat women in better ways, and that will produce better families. So this isn't, and I want to get back to making this point, which I love the way that you put this earlier. This isn't about a male against female issue. This isn't about, one gender needs to be this and one gender needs to be that. This is not that discussion. This is about, hey, something has gone wrong and there's a problem, and addressing the problem. It's not the gender isn't the issue. It's the problem that's the issue. And I think when you do start to see children being impacted in a way that is destructive, they're starting to behave in a way that's disrespectful, you can directly ascribe that type of communication from that as coming from a toxic, in this case, a narcissistic woman. Let's move forward just a little bit, because we have a little bit of time. We're going to have to do another show, because we only scratched the tip of the iceberg with this thing. But it's fascinating, because we're really moving step by step through this process. We wanted to go through reintegrating children into the father and children being reintegrated. But I think we need to park on some of these toxic things first, because this is really where you need to nip it in the bud in order to have the success necessary to be reintegrated into your children's lives if you've lost that contact. But before we go, I want to ask you about some of the things that you're planning here in the next few weeks. I know that this is a critical time for you. I've seen through social media that you're putting together or being part of several different events. Can you talk a little bit about that so that we can have our gentlemen tune in?
Yes, absolutely. So on March 25th, we have a free online forum, and it's about fathers' rights. I have someone from an organization called Empowerment for Life, someone from an organization called Children's Rights Fund, and we are literally going to be talking about how important